Johnny Somali came to Korea with the obvious intention of making clickbait videos to promote his provocative channel.
So the South Koreans are very upset.
Johnny Somali apparently might be taking a really long vacation from content creation. It might be a 29-year vacation.
He's getting banned from countries. He's facing potential legal and criminal trouble. His entire reputation as both his online persona of Johnny Somali, but also as Ramsey Khalid Ismail of Arizona, is completely tarnished.
He's a racist asshole who does his best to disrupt society and make everyone's lives around him miserable.
This has got to be the absolute worst type of social media creator. And the chaos he makes is just ridiculous.
Talk about your statue or touch it ever again.
You'd think getting arrested in Japan for his content, spending 3 months in jail, and finally getting released would have taught him something. But no, he flies straight to Israel, pulls the same stunts, and surprise, gets arrested again. And just when you think it can't get any crazier, the guy goes to Korea, sticks to his usual antics, and surprise, surprise, gets arrested again. But this time, it might actually be serious, for good. A potential 29-year sentence with labor is on the table, as Somali has officially been indicted by South Korean authorities for harassing women, trashing businesses, and disrespecting war monuments. What does that even mean for him, though? And why can't he stop being an asshole? And more importantly, why is he such a train wreck? If you're not familiar with Johnny Somali, he's what's known as a nuisance streamer, a term no one really needed until this guy came along. But now that it exists, it feels like every kick streamer fits the category perfectly. And if you had to rank them by chaos levels, Johnny Somali is easily #1. The difference, though, between someone like Johnny Somali and the other big-name streamers is the budget. While others can afford to have scary-looking security guards lurking behind the camera, making sure no one dares to fight back, Johnny goes the cheap route. His version of security is simply flying to high-trust societies, usually in Asia, where people are less likely to intervene or even speak up when someone acts out in public. And he takes full advantage of that, exploiting the culture to harass strangers, especially women, because he knows no one will step in to stop him.
What the fuck? Can I eat your foot? Come on, dude.
Damn, I just spent 30 bucks in there.
Excuse me. Hey, excuse me. Can I get your number? No? Can I get your number?
I'm a boyfriend.
Can I get your number?
I have a boyfriend.
Can I get your number?
I'm lesbian.
Can I get your number? Can I get your number?
Actually, all have boyfriends.
Now, let's get into what got Johnny Somali arrested this time and what might finally get him locked up for good in South Korea. But first, let's rewind and take a look at his history, because, like the country his name references, it's far from a pretty story. Johnny was an absolute menace in Japan, where he spent his time streaming 24/7 on the streets, harassing people and pushing the limits of their polite and respectful culture. He'd invade women-only trains just to bother them, disrupt silent zones on public transport by being ridiculously loud, and even scream things like Hiroshima, Nagasaki, you know what we did to you.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Spy balloon. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, you know what we did to you.
This behavior made him go viral, but not in a good way. Somehow, he became more hated in Japan than Logan Paul, which, let's be real, is an impressive feat. Just when you think he couldn't sink any lower, there's footage of Johnny in South Korea carrying around a dead, rotting fish that he'd intentionally let spoil so it would reek and bother everyone around him. This kind of behavior is like a masterclass in being technically not illegal, but still wildly unacceptable. It's one of those things where there's no specific law against it yet. Every law that exists today came from some idiot trying something that wasn't explicitly illegal at the time. What's evident in his streaming videos is that Johnny hasn't faced any real consequences yet. He's still fresh out of Japan, where he was arrested but got off with nothing more than a slap on the wrist, so he's pushing boundaries again, acting like he's untouchable. But this time, South Korea might actually deliver the reality check he desperately needs. In the days leading up to his arrest, Johnny ramped up his obnoxious behavior by blasting World War II speeches and shouting bonsai calls on public transport.
Funny, bro. Africa TV, man. Oh my God, bro. Yo, shot.
For those unfamiliar with Japanese and South Korean history, this is the cultural equivalent of playing Hitler speeches at the Holocaust Museum or blasting George Bush sound bites at the 9/11 Memorial. And when someone dares to get upset, he gets in their face and starts screaming, "I'm autistic."
I don't know, I'm autistic.
As if that's some sort of free pass for being a public nuisance. And not only this, he also played hentai, a genre of Japanese manga and anime characterized by overtly sexualized characters and sexually explicit images and plots on a train and facility. He continued this for several days. But after a few days of being as obnoxious as humanly possible, doing stunts like blasting war crime speeches on public transport and picking fights with anyone who dares to react, South Korea finally starts paying attention. At first, people just talk about how he needs to get out of the country, but since South Korea is a high-trust society, kind of like Japan and other nearby nations, nobody's going full vigilante yet. Instead, they're counting on the police, recording his streams, and flooding the authorities with evidence of the nonsense he's pulling on camera. One of the darkest, most tragic parts of South Korea's history, something so painful that even talking about it feels heavy, and he decides to mock it.
The big thing was that he's desecrating the Comfort Women statues with his presence near them. So had he actually just done graffiti and defaced property, that might have been easier to nab him. But what he did was lascivious acts with the statue, like making out with it, kissing it, twerking on it, like rubbing baby oil over his shirtless torso, and then grinding up on it and doing all this kind of like stuff.
He dances on the statue, takes his shirt off, and basically turns it into a prop for his cheap, shock value antics. And the worst part is that he knows exactly what it represents. He's not ignorant. He even mentions how Japan hates the statue because of the history it signifies. So this isn't some clueless prank, it's calculated disrespect.
You don't know the significance of that statue. You don't know the significance of that statue. I do. Japan's trying to remove those all over the world. My God, you should have seen their faces, chat, when they saw this pop up on the screen. They said, "Oh."
Another gross thing is how he's deliberately targeting people he assumes won't fight back. He's in these countries because he sees them as soft targets, places with cultural values that discourage confrontation. The guy's tiny, like barely 5 feet 1 inch, and he knows he'd get knocked out cold in places like the US or Australia, so he picks countries where he thinks he can get away with it. But he miscalculated big time because South Korea wasn't having it. Soon, his antics are everywhere, on TV, online, even discussed in Parliament. Streamers are putting bounties on his head, and crime groups are getting involved in tracking him down. This dude turned himself into public enemy #1. At one point, Johnny's beaten so badly, he's bandaged up and still gets caught slipping by a guy waiting for him outside his hotel. This happens right in front of the cops, who don't step in until the beating is done. Then, Johnny is taken into custody for his own safety because he's not surviving much longer out there. And just when you think it's over, you find out about his fake AI stunt. Johnny makes a deepfake video of himself and a South Korean streamer claiming they're in a relationship, which is not just creepy, but also illegal under South Korea's strict digital sexual assault laws, which is why he's hit with multiple charges, including assault, disruption of business, and the deepfake incident, each carrying serious prison time. He's looking at nearly 30 years behind bars. At this point, Johnny's career and freedom are officially over. When a country's parliament is watching your videos to discuss your crimes, You're not leaving anytime soon. His only way out is defecting to North Korea, because honestly, he might find more freedom there than in the South Korean prison system.